The word tariff.
Tariffs.
Tariff's the most beautiful word to me in the dictionary. It's music to my ears.
One thing's for sure, Trump loves tariffs, and it's been a long-term obsession. It started back in the late 1980s when Trump first toyed with running for the presidency, criticizing American foreign policy in a full-page newspaper ad. Trump's target was still the world's #2 economy, but at the time that was Japan, not China.
If you ever go to Japan right now and try to sell something, forget about it, Albert. Just forget about it. It's almost impossible.
They laugh at us. They're laughing at this country and the way the country is being managed. And they should be laughing.
Trump's solution then, as it is now, was to impose tariffs. In an appearance on the Morton Downey Jr. show, he advocated the following.
You tax the hell out of all of them, 20% on oil, 20% on the cars, 20% on the VCRs.
Even back then, Trump was framing tariffs as a charge on the Japanese exporter producing the product, rather than what they actually are, a tax on the American importer for bringing goods into the country. But what's behind President Trump's love affair with tariffs? In part, it seems to stem from a belief that the golden age of American prosperity was the late 1800s into the early 20th century.
Our country was the richest in the 1880s and 1890s.
A time when almost 50% of federal revenue came from tariffs, a period known as the Gilded Age. It saw rapid industrialization and economic growth.
It was often seen, usually by people who have a lot of money, as this wonderful age. But for people who didn't have a lot of money, it was a very tough age. There was a lot of factory work. You had children working in mines.
Craig Baird is a historian and the host of Canadian History X. So when Trump describes it as an age of prosperity, he's kind of only getting it half right, really.
Oh, absolutely. It was very prosperous for the people who had money, the people who ran the factories, the people who, controlled land, controlled the railroads, things like that. Absolutely. It was very prosperous for them, but not for the people who were making all of those things run. And there was this massive gap between the rich and the poor.
The tariffs of the Gilded Age also led to a large government surplus, something Trump seems to aspire to.
We were so wealthy, we had commissions set up what to do with all the money that we were taking in.
Trump is also a fan of one of the names most closely associated with the tariff policies of the Gilded Age.
A president who was assassinated named McKinley.
William McKinley.
William McKinley. McKinley made our country very rich. He was the tariff king.
William McKinley was a Republican politician, the 25th president, and America's original tariff man.
I am a tariff man standing on a tariff platform.
He was called the Napoleon of protectionism. He truly believed that tariffs were an excellent way to build up your economy, to make things within your country. He believed that having huge tariffs was a way to protect your country. He was very isolationist.
However, McKinley's reputation as a tariff hawk was mainly earned before he became president, when he was a congressman and the chairman of the powerful House Ways and Means Committee. In this role, he helped shepherd through the Tariff Act of 1890 under the Republican administration of President Benjamin Harrison. The act, also known as the McKinley Tariff, saw an average charge of around 50% levied on imports. The goal of the act was to reduce the government surplus by making imports so eye-wateringly expensive that they would no longer be viable, meaning homegrown production would increase and tariff revenues would fall. The tariffs did provoke the growth of certain US industries, but overall they proved unpopular. They caused a steep increase in average prices and spelled doom for the governing Republican Party. By 1892, President Harrison was out of office and McKinley had lost his seat. When Trump cites McKinley so frequently, does he really misunderstand the lessons from McKinley? Because he doesn't talk about, or he doesn't seem to see the fact that the policy led to a defeat for the Republicans.
Trump is very much having a selective memory when it comes to McKinley. He's not seeing how it did decimate the Republican Party, and it wasn't decimated for long. I mean, McKinley became president in 1897, so it wasn't a decades-long situation, but it did hurt the party, and I think he's just either he doesn't know that or he's just ignoring it.
Instead of learning from the failures of the McKinley tariff, Trump is experiencing for himself what happens when you foist ill-conceived tariffs on the American electorate. He's already put a pause on the bulk of his tariffs in what appears to be a sign of second thoughts.
People were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, you know? They were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid.
As Trump passes his first 100 days in office, his popularity is now underwater. A recent CNN poll showed 61% of Americans disapprove of his handling of the economy, and 65% disapprove of his handling of tariffs. McKinley was ultimately able to learn from his own missteps on tariff policy, with his position evolving over a number of years. In 1897, he became president after a savvy and well-run campaign. Although still an advocate for tariffs, he began to soften his approach, and by the start of his second term in office, the tariff man had changed his tune, starting to see them as a tool to encourage reciprocity with trade partners, and not a device to generate revenue.
The period of exclusiveness is past. Commercial wars are unprofitable. Reciprocity treaties are in harmony with the spirit of the times. Measures of retaliation are not. If some of our tariffs are no longer needed for revenue or to encourage and protect our industries at home, why should they not be employed to extend and promote our markets abroad?
As for Trump, he's still trying to find a way off the hill he's chosen to die on. Already he's signaling the start of a U-turn on his flagship tariffs of 145% on economic rival China.
145% is very high, and it won't be that high. It's not going to be that high.
It took McKinley 10 years to move from a position of overt and complete protectionism to seeing tariffs as a negotiating tool on the path to free trade. Trump's evolution has taken a matter of weeks, but a U-turn on policy may not be enough to secure a resurgence in credibility. For McKinley, his turn to open markets was short-lived. On September 6, 1901, just 6 months into his second term as president, he was gunned down by an assassin. Shot twice at close range, he was wounded but not killed. Initially, his condition appeared to improve, but he developed gangrene, and by September 14th, he was dead, as were his plans for freer trade. McKinley's killer was an angry, unemployed anarchist. And maybe here is the real lesson to be taken from the Gilded Age: the risk of political violence in a rapidly changing, increasingly unequal society. Sound familiar?
4 people have died as Trump supporters stormed the building.
The attempted assassination of Donald Trump, a dark new turn for a deeply divided nation.
Manhattan prosecutors filing a murder charge for last week's shooting of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson.